Hello, everybody. You are now live with the Anthem Awards for our weekly interview series, the Impact Series. I'm Jessica Lauretti. I'm the managing director of the Anthem Awards. The Anthem Awards are brought to you by the Webbies and are a new platform that is dedicated to honoring purpose and mission-driven work from brands, organizations, and individuals all around the world. We are currently in our second season and we have an open call for entries. So if anyone who's watching out there now is working on purpose and mission driven work, we really encourage you to participate and become a part of our community that we're building here. We have an extended entry deadline that is open to October 21st, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow. So make sure you get your entries in. If you have any questions, we have a customer service team that is happy to help. And everything you need to know is on our website at anthemawards.com. So with that said, this is our favorite time of the week, the best thing that we get to do as part of our jobs, which is when we get to talk to our amazing community of winners and judges and partners and just all kinds of amazing humans who are working on amazing projects from all kinds of different perspectives and all around the world. So I am so delighted to have with us today Beryl Chung, who is creative director at Media.Monks and is joining us from Amsterdam. Thank you so much for being with us today, Beryl.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jessica. I'm thrilled to be part of this.
Well, let's just start off by saying congratulations, because Media.Monks was one of our inaugural winners with 9 honors for a number of different projects that you all have been working on. So congratulations and thank you for being a part of this community that we're building. Let's start by talking about creativity. As a creative director, how do you think about creativity? What do you think is the role that it plays in the development of these kind of projects? And how does it ultimately, factor into the success of a project and an impact project?
An impact project, sure. Well, first of all, I want to say how honored we were to receive an Anthem Award for so many excellent projects. Thank you for the tiny round of applause. Also for our employee-led initiative, Women in Tech, which went under DEI Employee Volunteer Initiative. It's something that's very close to my heart that I was involved in for the past several years in the EU, showcasing the perspectives, diverse thinking, and leadership styles of the women that we work with every day. I love this question about what role creativity plays. I mean, I think especially, in our industry, we have so much expertise, experience in developing communications, as well as interaction, marketing, selling brands. And why not apply those skill sets to also promote the values that we believe in? Mm-hmm. I think also coming from an agency that does production as well as creative, it also takes a unique perspective to work within the constraints of, for example, the new tech that we're engaging, the platforms that we work in, also the data that we're leveraging, of course. I think that informs the way that we address cultural and social initiatives. It's really working within those constraints, as well as collaborating with people who are immersed in both those different disciplines, as well as the communities that we're talking to, that really gives rise to ideas that wouldn't proliferate otherwise. Like, for example, instead of feeling limited by restraints within development, we can also leverage the understanding of those developers to say, well, actually, that's not possible, but this concept that even furthers the story might even be serving it better. So that's been part of what's been exciting for me getting to work at an agency like Media.Monks.
Yeah, I mean, so often the constraints of technology or even just project scopes or things like that so often lead to those really creative moments where, you have to kind of figure out another way or a different approach or another way to execute an idea. So that's so cool. Tell us about, you mentioned a little bit about interactivity. So you've mentioned that you came to really understand what makes good user experience earlier in your life through comic books. So tell us about that, and tell us about if you have particular comics in mind that have influenced your work as a creative director.
Sure. Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled that you asked about this. I could talk about this for days, so you got to pull me back in, Jessica. Yeah, I mean, I love comic books. I always thought I would grow up to be a comic book artist. Maybe I still will. Who knows? But it really was the first introduction for me of the power of text informing image. I guess in advertising, we usually talk about, copy and art supporting each other. But really what that is, in my understanding, is different types of information supporting each other. And so one of the golden rules in comics is that you don't want to say and show the same thing. You don't want to show and tell the same thing.
Right.
So you wouldn't have a character's speech bubble, for example, saying exactly what you can see in the image. You're really missing out on different channels of communication. Also, we're saying, I think we take for granted how complex comic books are. For example, they have to involve a lot of different types of information. So some of them, like I said, are speech bubbles. Some of them are thought bubbles. Others will be narrative blocks. There's also like padding in between the cells so that you can differentiate them, right? And we sort of just like inherently understand how that progresses, but actually it's really effective information design. And that's especially apparent if you look at comic books from other countries. For example, in Asia, where they're read from right to left instead of left to right. Then, of course, some of the formatting as well as some of the information design is customized for that market. So I think that also applies to digital in that you're introducing new dimensions, and each of those dimensions can add further layers, further information to the story that you're telling. I also want to note that showing and not just telling is not just limited to the work and the projects that I produce. It's also informed my management style. I think that, around the world, every team is looking for a way to be more inclusive in their creative process. And that's also true of me. It's not just telling people what our North Star is. It's how to engage them and make them feel involved and that they're contributing to this vision.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I think two things I think of. One is just really the power of illustration and comic artists, really what you're talking about, the like singular images put together to tell that story is just an extraordinary talent that is certainly underappreciated or has been in the past. So that's really cool. It's kind of like what has inspired you in the past.
Yes.
And also,
yes.
Yeah.
I'd love to throw out some recommendations. I don't want to let this
I think people would like that.
Selfishly, yeah. So one of my favorites is Taiyo Matsumoto. He's a manga artist. People may know Tekken Concrete. Was a film that came out recently. Another one of his series, Ping Pong, was both an anime series as well as a live action movie. He is quite sketchy, kind of like a loose line style. It looks like it's done very, very haphazardly, but actually it's very intentional in the way that he, balances blacks to compose a page, for example, and also uses different mark making to express the emotions of a scene. Something else that I think is really influenced me in my professional work, especially, is that he introduces characters through symbols. So they kind of are branded in that sense. So for example, in ping pong, there's a coach named Butterfly Joe. And every time you see a butterfly, you know that it's referencing this character. So it might be a very wistful moment. It might be, in the midst of a really intense ping pong battle. It sounds very dramatic when you say it like that, but it's just an instant way to recall that this character is either being thought about or is present in that moment.
Yeah, it's so interesting too when you think about, you had mentioned, global markets and different perspectives, and really the visual language is so different from Eastern and Western countries. And so that is like so much a part of that identity as well. It's just like a really cool, like creative lens. It's just a totally different thing than you would have access to like in North America, for example, that kind of like the visual language piece of it too. Talk about, you had said something about inclusivity and how that being important to you in your work. And I know that you're working on bringing empathy into the teams at Media.Monks. So tell us what you've been working on, and tell us what are some of the challenges that you've experienced through your work there.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think the basis of inclusivity is that everyone on the team, it feels safe and empowered to share their opinion as well as challenge the messaging that is going out, regardless of their background and especially their level of seniority. I think certainly for me, having reached a director level, I'm very conscious of the halo effect. If I speak first, then a lot of people are going to respond to that or acknowledge that before they offer their own opinion. And I think especially when we're talking about campaigns with impact, projects with impact, projects that reference communities, it's especially important to have everyone feel heard. I want to say also that that includes not making anybody an ambassador for their community. I've certainly felt like that, even inclusivity and intersectionality, these are buzzwords that we throw around. But for me, that means, I don't feel, even with my experience as a woman, as a Chinese American who has lived in China and now in Amsterdam, I wouldn't speak to the experience of all Chinese people or all Chinese American people who have lived in China even, so because those are so layered and because it is so nuanced, that's also what's exciting about it, right? Is that like our definitions of those things are constantly evolving. And so kind of the humility around the discomfort that comes with interacting with people that are very different from us is something that is very important to me throughout the creative process.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so true. The diversity of experience in people is what makes the world such a beautiful and wonderful place. And also just that, again, these are buzzwords or whatever that get thrown around, but inclusivity is really like a lifelong journey, especially in terms of management and working with teams and making people feel seen and heard and included. I just really encourage anyone who's watching out there, who's working in this space in any kind of capacity, to really just to start. And you'll probably mess up, and that's okay. But it's like, it's good to start. It's good to try. It's good to mess up. It's good to be sorry for the way that you messed up and try better and try harder the next time. And just to continue to try to progress and evolve for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. I also want to say, especially in digital, I think we need to acknowledge that the current Web 2.0 platforms have not been developed. The internet at large has not been developed with an empathetic or inclusive mindset at its core. I think we're all familiar with the troll farm that we're that we're constantly facing on social media, especially. And not only that, like the way that we're advertised to, the way that, sometimes design can be used, irresponsibly. And I think, in the future, especially as we have new platforms burgeoning, such as Web 3.0 and the metaverse, that they also come with challenges as well as opportunities for us to establish better systems.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of, can you talk about one of your winning projects, the Uncensored Library? Tell us about, what was the project? How, you use, I know it's based on Minecraft. Can you tell for people who aren't familiar, what it is, what it's all about, what was the idea? How did you fulfill this creative vision?
Sure. Such an amazing project. I'm so thrilled for my colleagues that were able to contribute to this. So this was an extension of our Media.Monks' partnership with Reporters Without Borders alongside DDB as well as Blockworks, who built the environment in Minecraft. They're an incredible design studio as well. And so this was really leveraging the game's creative mode as well as ability to showcase books in order to make censored materials accessible in this metaverse space. One of the primary reasons that we just selected this platform was because of the reach it had. So again, trying to reach our community where they are. Even in 2019, there were 145 million active players every month.
Wow.
And I think also, just for me personally, what's really interesting about Minecraft is that it's not the video game that maybe we had understood, that we kind of assume that kids would be interested in. It's not competitive, for example. It's not rewards based. There are modes where you're just purely exploring and building. And in that sense, it's also a different mindset that comes along with that.
Yeah, extraordinary work. Congratulations on that. Tell us about the Empathy Experiment, which you've called a thought leadership passion project. Tell us all about that.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, why is it a thought leadership passion project? Okay. The Empathy Experiment. Shameless,
okay, we got a visual
promotion. Yes. Hello. Is live right now on empathyexperiment.com. So I encourage everybody to check it out. It's an interactive animated microsite. The entire experience is about 3 to 5 minutes long. I look all fuzzy, but they look fantastic.
And that in there. That was like a nice surprise.
Oh, thank you. And it visualizes the impact of higher and lower empathetic behavior in a series of workplace scenarios that kind of reference the different hierarchies within the professional space. So in each of the scenarios, a colleague character approaches you about an interaction that made them uncomfortable. The buzzword associated with this could be interpreted as a microaggression. It's a comment or an offhand joke, for example, that makes you feel weird, but you're not sure why. You feel like you've kind of been overlooked or reduced to some element of your identity that you don't feel fully represented by. And we built it largely from the experiences of the team that worked on it. Actually, it was initiated at an offsite workshop for Women in Tech, an employee volunteer initiative, where we were discussing the backlash that often accompanies DEI training. And this is, in corporations around the world. So we wanted to tackle how to introduce these concepts and have people who identify as part of the majority feel included in discussions about diversity as well as inclusivity. I think, oftentimes that's met with a very defensive response, which is not the intention. And so this was really a conversation starter on how to create productive conversations. There's kind of a multiple choice, choose your own adventure interaction. You choose from among the responses that are given. And because it is called the experiment, you're encouraged to go back and try different responses and see how that affects the experience as well as the visuals throughout the game. We tried to make the characters really personable and fun. And we worked with the Diversity Standards Collective, which is a group out of the UK, to help us design characters without identifying cultural signifiers, gender signifiers. We worked with clinical psychologist Dr. Kimberly Neneme on the scripting of it. And it's essentially to introduce this concept of not prescribing a solution, but asking more. So going back to maybe showing, not telling, right? Like, how can we ask better questions as opposed to just prescribing what might make us feel better in the moment?
Amazing, and such an incredible project. I think too, sometimes we forget that work and professional environments are just people, but right. And it's like a bunch of people working on a bunch of things together, and that human element of it. And, so often someone who's very well intentioned or, not trying to do anything can say or do something. And so, just again, encourage everyone that this is really like a lifelong journey to like learn and listen and teach each other and help everyone feel kind of more seen. But incredible work. It seems so cool. Can't wait to like see more about it. Is there anything else you want to tell us about before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, I also wanted to note, just to your previous point, that part of the intention of the scripting in the experiment is really that there are no wrong answers. All of the answers, regardless of empathy level, are intended to help. So, for example, one of the, I'm going to spoil it now. I'm going to cheat. Okay. But one of the, like, for example, one of the lower empathy responses is, "Hey, don't think about it right now. Let's go out for a drink." Which could be interpreted as overlooking the severity of this person's reaction, right? But also is just trying to help get their mind off of it, get them into a different headspace. One of my favorite interactions in the entire experience is right at the beginning, where you're asked, you're given the option, I should say, to enter the name of a close friend or colleague. And this colleague, in some of the scenarios, is the one who is approaching you about something that happened to them. And in other scenarios is mentioned as somebody who made a colleague uncomfortable. Yeah. And that's really to say that doesn't make them a bad person. That doesn't make them a bad friend. And so it's sort of addressing, again, like, what are those sensitivities in being kinder to each other and ourselves in this understanding.
Yeah. And also, to defer to alcohol as a way to deal with stress, to forget about problems. It's like, we could also just like talk about them and resolve personal issues in a non-confrontational way. So appreciate that anecdote and example you shared. Tell everyone, like, how, if they're interested in the work that you're doing, like, where do they find more? Where can they see? What are you working on that's launching next that you can tell us about? Anything to look forward to?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I'm really excited to be working to integrate the empathy experiment into our internal DEI training as an introduction to diversity, equity, inclusion materials, as well as the discomfort that comes along with diversity and collaborating with people who are very different from us. But that's also where innovation comes from, right? That we interact with people who have very different ways of thinking. And that's not a small feat, because we are an organization of over 9,000 people. So we'd love to invite anybody who'd like to run the experiment or as a workshop with their team or their organization or a brand. Please reach out to us. You can reach me at Beryl.Chung at Media.Monks.com or womenintech at Media.Monks.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today. And just thank you for all the work that you do every day and all the projects that you all are working on at Media.Monks. It's so great to have you as part of our community. Thank you everyone who's watching out there. Again, Anthem Awards extended entry deadline is 2 weeks from tomorrow on Friday, October 21st. Make sure that you enter your work. We can't wait to see what everyone has been working on in the past year. And we are starting to think about planning and organizing for our yearly winners celebration and event. So stay tuned for more information about that in the coming weeks. We can't wait to get folks together and just bring the social impact community together across issues and industries and from people all over the world. So just thank you again for being a part of this, and thanks everyone who's out there. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you. See ya.